What up, Raf leaders? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about the Sovereign Wealth Fund. We're talking about what the Bank of Guyana report says for the first quarter of 2023 about the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Now, Guyana has been experiencing extremely high economic growth, about 50% per annum for the last couple of years, as I predicted in several videos on the oil and gas industry. And we have been increasingly updating larger and larger sums of profit oil and royalties. But this is the first quarter in which we have seen a drop in the amount of money Guyana earned from the oil and gas industry compared to the previous quarter. Guyana earned $219 million from oil and gas in the first quarter, that is from January to March 2023, but that is down from $507 million which we earned in the fourth quarter of 2022, right? The previous quarter. So the question is, why is this? And there are no answers in the report. So the Bank of Guyana report for 2023 Q1, that is the first quarter of 2023, says that Guyana now has $1.646 billion in our sovereign wealth fund. Remember the last time I made a video about this, Guyana's sovereign wealth fund was at $1.429 billion. So we barely increased the amount of money in our sovereign wealth fund. However, the government withdrew $200 million from the fund, which accounts for the fact that the fund did not increase significantly over the last quarter. In addition to this, it seems that the government is on a new schedule to withdraw about $1 billion from the fund during this year, that is during 2023. But at the same time, the fund is seeing a reduction in the amount of oil Guyana is getting from profit oil, and there is no explanation for this. So if there's one shortcoming in the report, it's that it makes no explanation for the fact that during this quarter, Guyana only received 2 million barrels of oil in profit oil, 2 lifts, and they predict that for the next quarter, that is Q2, from April to June 2023, Guyana is again going to receive only 2 lifts. And the question is, why is this? How is it that Guyana received $507 million from the sale of oil and royalties in December, up to December, that is the fourth quarter of 2022, but only $200 million in 2023 first quarter, and only another expected about $200 million in 2023 second quarter? There is no explanation for this. So we would like to examine it and perhaps speculate, but at the same time, let us ask the authorities that are responsible for these figures to account for the changes. So why is it that Guyana only received 2 lifts in first quarter 2023? My speculation is that Exxon is incurring new costs in their expansion. Remember that ExxonMobil has decided to develop a third facility for extracting oil, third oil well, right? So they are going to develop Payara, which is going to put about 220,000 barrels per day, an output of 220,000 barrels per day in 2023. And to develop that new output, my guess is that Exxon is spending a lot more money from the sale of oil, the current production sale of oil, and that along with the increased development of oil fields will be a reduction in the amount of profit oil, right? So that is my speculation. Remember, Exxon is also developing a new oil field, Yellowtail, for 2025. So they're developing the Payara field in 2023, which is going to put out another 220,000 barrels of oil per day, and then the Yellowtail field will put out 250,000 barrels per day beginning in 2025. And so what is hidden in all of these announcements is the fact that Exxon is incurring additional development costs, production costs, expenses that are now being billed to the company's output, and therefore reducing the amount of profit oil, right? So remember, I calculated previously in the last video that based on the production schedule for the previous year, couple of years, Guyana's sovereign wealth fund should hit about $2 billion US dollars by the end of this year. I would have to revise that discussion or revise that prediction based on the current speculation that Exxon is not borrowing to develop its new oil fields. Exxon is actually spending down the cost of development from its current production, right? So that means that we can no longer expect, say, 1 million barrels per day every 8 days, which was my prediction when the oil production was 120,000 barrels per day, and 1 million barrels per day every 3 days, which was what I predicted when they increased production from 120,000 barrels per day to 340,000 barrels per day. My revision tells me that we're probably going to earn approximately $800 million this year from our profit oil and cost and royalties, but the government is going to extract $1 billion from the fund, which means the fund is probably not going to increase significantly in 2023. It might decrease by about $200 million by the end of the year. So that's my calculation, guys. It's difficult to comprehend, in other words, to understand what is happening, but if you account for the fact that Exxon is expanding production capacity by building out new new oil wells, right, increasing production to 800 million barrels per day by the end of 2025, the cost of building the new oil wells, of building new FPSOs, and of developing new oil fields, that cost is being subtracted from the profits that Exxon is making. And that explains why Guyana only earned $200 million in the first quarter of 2023 and is expected to earn only $200 million, about $200 million in the second quarter of 2023, that is the next quarter. And so Guyana will probably earn only about $800 million in 2023, and the sovereign wealth fund may decrease by about $200 million because the government of Guyana is going to extract $1 billion from the sovereign wealth fund during this current year. So that is my explanation, guys. That's what's going on. Now, in the meantime, the price of oil continues to be steady. In fact, it has gone down to about $79 a barrel currently on the in the New York Mercantile Exchange. Remember, it was at a high price of about $120 a barrel per day, $120 per barrel back in 2022. So the price of oil is going to remain stable, although it's going to probably trend lower because of the war in Europe and now the war in Sudan and various conflicts that put pressure on the price of oil. While at the same time, the Chinese economy is picking up. They're going to see about 5.5%, 5.3% economic growth this year because of the rebound from the pandemic. So I expect the price of oil to remain fairly stable between $70 and $80 per barrel for the rest of the year. But it's still a lot lower than it was a year ago, and therefore you have to moderate your expectations for earnings, right? Earnings for 2023. But that's what's happening, guys. The deal is that Guyana's sovereign wealth fund is not going to increase significantly in 2023, as I predicted before, because a lot of the money, the profits, are being spent to develop new oil fields like the Payara field and the Yellowtail field, which will come on stream later on this year in 2023 for Payara and 2025 for Yellowtail. But after that, after Guyana starts to produce about $1 million a barrel per day in 2025 and beyond, well, 800 million barrels per day in 2025, and by the end of the decade, a million barrels per day, then we should see a rebound in profit oil, in amount of money we earn from profit oil, right? But in the meantime, we're simply treading water. The outlook is still very good, guys. I'm still quite happy with the rate of growth of the oil and gas sector, although the amount of money being received in profit oil will decrease or remain lower compared to previous year. It still is a significantly better state. We're still in a significantly more stable state than the rest of the world. We still have a problem with inflation, but if you look around, as you can see from some of the videos I've posted recently, the rate of development, rate of growth is extremely rapid. I've had the chance during my visit to the Timeri Airport, Kettijagan Airport, which I showed you in the previous video, I've had a chance to examine what's happening on the East Bank, and what I've seen is massive infrastructure development and a lot of really interesting business and economic development, housing, housing construction, and industrial parks, and so on, and shipping facilities along the bank of the Demerara River. So I'm going to explore some of those in the coming videos. Remember, this is the kind of video I'm going to post on my business channel. If you're not yet subscribed to Raffle Nation Business. This video is going to be posted on the main channel, Raffle Nation Main, currently the channel on which I post most videos every day. But in future, I'm going to be posting more and more videos on those additional channels. So make sure you subscribe to those channels to see all of my content. Remember, you can share this video with friends and family around the world and let people know what's happening here in Georgetown, Guyana. Later!